I'm going to the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque. I am ready to run around in the desert and meet new people and get out of this town. I love my room. I share it with my sister who's currently living in Arizona, so throughout the year it's pretty much mine. I feel like it's very me. On one wall I have all the posters that came in records that I have, and let's see, I have a doodle of Mac DeMarco someone gave me. I have all my Polaroids of bands that I photographed where I've lurked after the show trying to meet them, taken little Polaroids, give them hugs, cried about it later. I have my tape deck, my record player, my lava lamp, all my records, all my books, my favorite books. I have a picture of Clay from Twin Peaks right by my bed as soon as I wake up. See that beautiful man? A bunch of film negatives lying everywhere because I'm too lazy to put them away. But I can't wait to shoot in the desert, new scenery, instead of in the suburbs of Maryland. I will miss this. I hope I don't have an ugly, cinder block dorm. I'm gonna miss hugging my dog. She has really soft ears. I'll miss those ears. I understand how people are completely terrified. I'm surprised that I'm not terrified. I'm so excited as soon as I get there to walk around the town by myself without a phone, without a map, and just explore and I don't know, see something new. You can't stay in the same place. You have to interact with things you've never interacted with before, so you know how you can act in new situations.
A lot of artists, whenever they make music, they want to make music to stuff that connects to the heart, things that are personal. And one thing that's very personal to me is my faith. I'm a Christian, and I like to write a lot of songs about my experiences in life and journey and stuff like that. I write about my wife, I write about my daughter, night out with my friends. And yeah, I hold a lot of value in life and how I approach certain things. So a lot of times my music, you definitely hear some faith background in it. So I'm Dominican and Salvadorian, and growing up in South Florida, and I grew up in New York as well, a lot of my friends, they're from everywhere. So I grew up with Dominican friends, Puerto Rican friends, friends from Israel, friends from Russia, Italy. It was, a melting pot just full of culture. And a lot of times going over to my friend's house, I'm going to eat their dinner that they have from their culture, from their background, and then also hear their music. So a lot of that has always inspired me to create music that's very worldwide sounding, and a lot of times with a lot of Latin background to what I connect with. So yeah, a lot of my music, you'll hear some of that.
Tore my collar. It's been on my mind and heart. We have a house here that if people needed to be hosted, one or two people, the house is right over there, right behind you, the brick house. That's where I live, and we can. Bye, Max. Good to see you. And that I live there. It's church property. Most pastors do not live on church property. They live in their own house somewhere in the community. And churches don't have the resources. They don't have showers. They don't have bedrooms like we have in the house there. So we do not have a lot of, as you can tell, we're not a large faith community. We don't have a lot of resources otherwise. But that we do have. in terms of how we can be here. And somebody came to knock on the door today, they are welcome here. Then we network with the community. There's very little chance it will happen, but we are here, and I would welcome them in the house.
Let's be honest. Serving as a sanctuary church and a sanctuary congregation only works if everyone's talking, everyone's working together, and folks that might be deported know the rights they have while they're here, and know to call this number, and know what to do when ICE shows up.
Right. The concept of rapid response is built around response to an actual ICE raid. ICE, as you probably know, is Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and these are the people that knock on your door at 4 a.m. and haul away the mom or the dad or whoever. And that event is a really big deal and traumatic and frightening. And so it is creating two responses. One of them, which I'll not talk about, is know your rights, which is basically don't open the door. And other things. There's a whole body of training about that that's very important, but then there's also rapid response. And rapid response is a system in which when that event occurs, by a mechanism I'll describe in a minute, people in the area who are signed up in advance as volunteers immediately, as they can, drop what they're doing and go to that place and be there within minutes, hopefully. And then witness, record, do other things, and provide moral support.
And I'm a firm believer that is what is most spiritual in the world is most concerned with the common good, the kingdom of God, which is among us. And we just trying to realize that. And as I said in the prayer, what is good for the least of these is good for the whole. This church is very much guided by that understanding. How can we serve the needs of the vulnerable in the community?
Let's give it up for the wonderful young ladies who joined BCC's teaching staff this year. Thank you, Ms. Pierce, for always making this school look festive. Don't give up, Ms. Cohn. You'll discover that next Van Gogh yet. There's Ms. Bloom, always showing us how to stay in line and within the lines. Oh, and of course, our beloved Ms. Galen, always one to inspire her home ec students with a pithy piece of etiquette advice.
Now, children, if anyone, and I mean anyone, tries to tell you that America's greatness is in the past, do me a favor. Tell them to shove it. Crumpets, anyone?
Oh, okie dokie. Wow, I guess that's all that we have for you this week. Ta-ta for now from the Tattler.
So I'm going to Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, and that's about the extent of my plans. Well, I'll probably bring my computer, at least one of my guitars, if not all of them, all the clothes that I can bring. Probably this blanket, because I've had that since I was like 2. That's probably it. I don't really have that many like things that I'm deeply attached to. I'm not like deeply attached to like this place. Like I'll always love it because like it's like where I grew up and it's fun to be here, but I don't feel like there's like something I still have to contribute to this area. Like I feel like I'm okay to go somewhere new. There are like times where I'll be like, oh my god, I can't wait to like leave. I'm like tired of this. This is getting really boring. And there are also times where I'm like, oh my god, it's going to be so sad to leave, because I think that like I think it's definitely for the best, because like the fact that I am feeling like, oh, I want to leave sometimes is probably a sign that like I should leave, but it's not as though I spend all my time saying like I don't like these people anymore, I can't wait to get out. I mean, for me it's been sort of a very like weird experience of like realizing you have to be a person because like my entire life up till now has been like planning for like the next year of like being a kid or like being in high school, and then now I'm like, oh god, I like have to like gain skills and like get a job or I'll die or like I'll have to like live here forever. So it's been very weird to actually confront the fact that I have to like be in the world, because it's felt sort of like this very far off, non-existent thing for so long. I feel like growing up is sort of an experience of losing a lot of what defined you as a kid, having to just sort of give that up because you're leaving the place and the people that like created your current self. Being a teen forever is definitely like appealing. So being able to just like around for all eternity would be fun, but I expect it would start to get boring at some point.
I mean, we're the wealthiest society in the history of civilization. We're living at the wealthiest time in the history of this wealthy society. It's all a question of values. A budget is an ethical document. A budget reflects our moral priorities. We always seem to have enough money for the things we don't need. I mean, we didn't need the Iraq War, which was built on a series of lies and propaganda. And yet we spent over $1 trillion, and it will go up over $2 trillion once we factor in all of the interest and the veterans payments and so on. That could have easily paid for college for everyone since the Iraq War took place, right? So it's a question of priorities. We can make the money work out if we want to elevate a commitment to higher education to everyone to the top of the list. So I don't know that we can get to free college for everyone, but we should be able to get to debt-free college for everyone. We should be able to figure out a way that people, through a combination of a personal contribution, a family contribution, and government assistance, can get through college without being saddled with a huge debt when it's all over. Because I know students who are carrying the equivalent of a house mortgage when they get out of college or graduate school, but they don't have a house. They have an education, which is priceless, of course, but they still need to live somewhere, and they still need to support their families and so on.
In a moment that we're in now, it is incumbent on us to press very hard for the value of the truth. And when the person who has the biggest megaphone of any person in the entire world says things that are not true, or where people who work for him say things that are not true, and I would say parenthetically attack those of us in the press why they do it, it is our job to say what is true.
Importance of the media taking on these attacks by Trump because of the rise of the media around the alternative right and media around this movement that's supporting Trump, that sees the press as the enemy, that's backing Trump's propaganda and gaslighting of the public.
I covered the Obama White House. I am now covering the State Department in the Trump administration. You know, we still have it pretty good, right? I mean, we go to briefings, no one's shooting at us, no one is arresting us. I was just in Turkey where 145 journalists are in prison. You know, when I was a cop reporter, I had some people pull guns on me. When I lived in Hazard, Kentucky, and was the Appalachian reporter for the Louisville paper, had more guns pulled on me. Somebody threw a firebomb at the truck in my driveway.
I think the issue here is bigger than just the president lying. It's an assault on reality. And that has to do with everything from science and climate change to tearing down institutions that might hold someone in high office accountable, or creating a kind of political weather system that exists detached from any other reality.
But I think we all have a role in not sharing information that's not correct, in supporting journalists who are trying to report the truth, and in holding journalists to that standard. It's encouraging to see all of the fact-checking operations that have come up, and when we see things that are false, it's important to be able to check them out ourselves and to be able to challenge them as well as journalists and support that.
My background is a large format film photographer. That's what I started shooting in the 90s, I guess. And I still have all that equipment. I still love film. But I've always been fascinated with architecture, especially living in and around Washington. We've got some of the greatest architecture in our country and on the East Coast. So as I was going through, especially graduate school, and I just really started refining a lot of my techniques in architecture, I started getting into more the digital realm. And I basically started developing this process as part of my thesis. Basically, these are panoramic images on steroids. They essentially are, if you've ever seen somebody walking around with their phone and going like this and taking pictures and stuff, in theory, that's kind of what I do. It's just a lot more refined. I go through and I take multiple rows of images, and I'll bore you to death with technical stuff, so I'm going to try hard not to do that. But one of the strengths of this process is the level of detail you end up with. A lot of these can be, some of these are a few hundred images. There's one out here that's about 1,200 images. I've had some that were like over 2,000. And that's part of my personal process. You don't maybe have to go that far with it, but that's just part of me. A lot of my work is trying to introduce the hyperreality of these spaces, and that's why I go into so much detail with how I capture and process it. These are ridiculous hours sitting in front of a computer swearing. Really bad words. And yeah, and but they do yield pretty good results.
My plans for next year are gap year and gap year only. By January, I'm going to go to Tokyo for 6 months, and I'm studying at Temple University. I'm going to do like art history, hopefully 2D art, so stuff like drawing and painting. So yeah, then I'm going to start my winter at Parsons, the new school. I have some growing up to do. I need to learn how to drive, so I'm going to do that during my gap year. I had a steady job for a minute, dipped, because I didn't want to work at the mall. I want to work at something that I want to work at. So I think I need to like find what that is. And I know it's in the arts, but what? What comes to mind when I think about my next step is moving out the country, because I think about my gap year a lot. And most importantly, the clothes. So what am I going to look like in Japan? I have plans to get rid of all my hair. I want to be a skinhead when I'm in Japan. I think it's very transformative. Like, my head will go through a lot. Going to high school, you're surrounded by so many people, and now I'm going to be surrounded by no one I know. I want to leave with a cleaned out mind of who I think of when I'm going there, you know what I'm saying? So, not that I'm purposely trying to forget people, but that I'm trying to focus on, like, the ones that I want to focus on. I'm the only person taking a gap year out of, like, my 10 closest friends. And, some are going to MC first and then off, but I'm the only one who's not going to be in college. Especially with my girlfriend, so we're going to the same college together. It's like, I have to wait a year, because I'll be in Japan and she'll be in Manhattan, so I'll just have to wait. It's really nice to know that there's someone on the other end, like not just, you know, a bunch of new friends that I'll be making, but someone like an old friend that I've been grown up with. So like 3, so it's lovely. I mean, making music since I began being a teenager, I did when I was younger, but I think like when I hit like 13, 14, 15 is when I wanted to start recording. I'm finally at that age where it's been 3 years since my first like recorded song, and I can listen to it and think, what was I 3 years ago? And this coming year I can record music so that in 3 years, when I'm almost graduating college, I can look back on that and think, what was I thinking then? So to be an artist is like a really lucky thing. I can't imagine like a life where you don't document how you feel. I'm so close to 20 though, you know what I mean? But like from like when I was born to the age of like 13, it all just happened. But then in your teenage years, you have this like awareness of like the things you do now represent who you are. Like you can't just tattle. To feel like closer to 20 than it does 15, I've like, it's much more serious. Yeah. So you're in high school, then you're not in high school, and then you're in college. But everyone thinks about like, so how's college going to be? But really like so how are you going to do this? How are you going to cope with this? Like how are you going to change? That's what they should be asking. The people experiences and things that I've grown up with until this coming year have like made who I am now. So it's kind of picking the best of that and you choosing this first year out of high school to use the best parts of you in what you're doing.
Hi, I'm Zoe.
And I'm Mian.
And we are the presidents of BCC's Body Positive Club.
We started this club to combat body image issues and eating disorders, which are often stigmatized and bring not only physical but emotional stress on those suffering from these illnesses.
With this video, we want to promote healthy attitudes about food. It's important to eat nutritious foods that help you reach your best performance, but it's just as important to have fun with food and to eat desserts when you feel like it without worrying.
One thing I'm passionate about is basketball.
Music, playing guitar and singing.
I'm really passionate about pole vault.
I'm really passionate about filmmaking.
I'm passionate about art.
I usually eat tofu.
I really love cereal, lots of grains and fruit and yogurt sometimes.
I guess pasta. I eat a lot of pasta before I make movies.
Really anything with peanut butter on it, I will eat.
Really anything, but I personally love quinoa, so I eat a lot of quinoa before I play piano.
My favorite dessert? Ooh, man. I like myself like a nice key lime pie, but not too limey because that's just disgusting. But not too much like condensed milk because then you're just like, oh.
I really like baklava. It's my favorite dessert.
I really like chocolate. Like every day, dark chocolate. I'll have like a little piece of dark chocolate.
Probably like slutty brownies with like the cookie and the Oreo and the, yeah.
I also love Gammknödel. It's an Austrian delicacy. It's just basically a dumpling filled with jam and you have vanilla sauce on top. It's perfect.
Chocolate, I think. Like any and all kinds. Yeah.
My favorite physical feature? My favorite physical
My favorite thing about my appearance would probably be my hair, although it kind of has a mind of its own sometimes, which can be difficult.
My favorite personal physical feature is my jawline.
I think my ears, because they're pretty like small, but I can still hear a lot, and I love to have them for music.
Probably my arms, which is like sort of weird, but for pole vault I need a lot of upper body strength, and I used to actually be sort of insecure about that, thinking that my arms are like gonna get too big for a girl, but I've become like more confident about that, and yeah, become my favorite feature.
The biggest insecurity is probably just like relationships, because I've never really been in one since 8th grade, and at that point like my 8th grade relationship, our gears didn't really like fit together so well.
Probably like my face structure. I feel like it's kind of like disproportionate.
Sometimes I get like weird like back knee and it's pretty nasty.
I've always been kind of short and on the smaller side, not very strong. I've been working on it though, and I overcome it by seeing that I don't have to be tall to have value, and it has advantages in its own way as well.
I am insecure about my skin, and that's been something that's gone on for a while. So I used to deal with it by like wearing lots of makeup and just like freaking out about it a lot, which just made it worse. But now I've just kind of come to terms with the fact that it's something that a lot of people deal with, and it's just part of being a teenager to have acne, and so.
Did I hear a debate happening?
Oh, thank God. Let's get out of here. Help me!
Okay, calm down. Let's just try our best to have a rational debate, okay?
This room is gonna burn down.
That sounds pretty one-sided, don't you think? That's an interesting opening statement. You are not good at this.
Come on, get us out of here.
Oh, you're all the same. You just want your safe space, don't you?
I'm literally gonna burn to death.
Okay, so it's actually really important to consider both sides of every issue. Like, let's look at it from the fire's perspective. Fire's actually what happens when a material, like wood, rapidly oxidizes. This is also known as combustion. You should probably stop blaming all your problems on the fire. You're choosing to think of yourself as a victim right now.
Put out the fire right now!
Okay, that's pretty violent. Remember, love is always stronger than hate. You don't have to stoop down to the fire's level.
Okay, this is not a debate. Can you get that through your thick head? We're both going to literally die in a fire if you don't do anything.
Do you have any evidence? Are there any studies supporting that claim? Can you show me some sources? Okay, if you don't want to use your words, that's fine. I'm clearly winning this debate.